Please come to the front. Use the Spanish. Good evening. Higher with my voice or higher with this? Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Karl Todman, and I'm the Dean of the College of Architecture and Design at Lawrence Technological University. Welcome to our college lecture series. I also want to welcome those joining us online this evening. Our college offers an online Masters of Architecture degree, and it's wonderful to be able to extend these events to our online students. And also thank you to LTU's e-learning for making the webcast possible. I'm also told that Lynn is joining online, so hi to Lynn. So a couple of announcements before we begin. We've got AIA continuing education credits available. You just have to sign up outside. The Ruth Adler Schnee exhibit opens tomorrow night at our college's Detroit Center of Design and Technology. The exhibit highlights the amazing work from the textile artist Ruth Adler Schnee. That exhibit opens at 5:30 tomorrow. And then the second announcement is that next Friday, November 11th at 5 p.m. will be our second extra disciplinary lecture from the XDL series with author Leslie Tenorio doing a reading from his book Monstrous and having a conversation with students about design and fiction. I hope you can join us. This event is being hosted by our NOMAS chapter, and NOMAS is the National Organization of Minority Architecture Students, and that will take place in room C406. So on to the business of tonight. It's my pleasure to introduce Juan Rois this evening. Juan is an Argentinian architect, a poet, an educator, an activist, and all-around passionate rabble-rouser. He promotes all things architecture and Argentinian every single chance he gets. I've had the opportunity to teach alongside Juan. I've known him for a number of years, and a number of years ago I was able to visit and see Juan in his natural habitat in Rosario. I was lucky enough to sample his mother's empanadas and meet his architectural mentors and longtime friends. Juan, well, and then I'm also wearing an Argentinian beef t-shirt tonight. This is what this is. This is why there's no tie today. Juan has an incredible network of architects and designers in Rosario. And I told you that he's passionate. I've seen him break down in tears while visiting an amazing building and talking about the light coming through a skylight. I've also seen him weep on student reviews at the sight of unsuccessful and problematic plans and sections that he described as doing irreparable damage to his eyeballs. I have to embarrass you a little bit, Juan. But I warned you, he's passionate. He also said he might be a little hoarse tonight because he was screaming for the Cubs last night. The trademark of a Lawrence Technological University education is our deeply held belief in the balance between theory and practice, and Juan embodies this duality. Juan holds a Master's of Architecture with a concentration in landscape urbanism from the University of Illinois, Chicago, and his professional degree from the National University of Rosario in Argentina. He's currently a professor there since his return to Argentina in 2011. He's held positions at UIC, the University of Michigan, the Graduate School of Design at Harvard, numerous other visiting appointments, juries, and as a critic in South America. He served at Michigan as the Charles Moore visiting professor, and this semester he's the Saarinen visiting professor. But this balance also comes because he's practiced in Chicago, he's worked with SOM, and worked with Javier Vandrell. In Argentina, he's worked with Marcelo Villafañe and Gerardo Caballero, of which I think he's going to show some of the work tonight. He currently has his own office with his sister, in Rosario. Roi. Juan has placed in and won numerous competitions that explore landscape, architecture, and urbanism. He exhibits, he lectures, and he writes on these topics. Through these various outlets, he's also become an advocate for Latin American architects and Latin American architecture. When I heard that Juan was going to be in North America this fall, I reached out to him almost immediately to see if he could join us. Juan's teaching at U of M, as I mentioned, while he's on sabbatical. The other thing is that it's part sabbatical, part extended honeymoon. Before getting on the plane to come to the States, he got married. So he's here with his wife, Alice, as well. As designers, we must find ways to broaden our conversations. Good designers must be inclusive and empathetic. We must be able to speak with people outside our disciplines and beyond our comfort zones. If design has any future, we must embrace a culture of greater diversity. I'm incredibly excited to include Juan in our lecture series to help us broaden our conversations and broaden our focus beyond North America. I'm so excited to welcome Juan this evening so that he can share his insights on what it means to practice in Latin America. Please join me in welcoming my good friend, Juan Rois.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? That was a lovely introduction, and I really want to thank this opportunity to think about my work in public. It's not something that I do actually quite a lot. And I could have named this lecture Conditions of Practice. I don't know why I didn't write it there, but imagine that it says Conditions of Practice. Because I really want to explain the particular frameworks that organizes the themes through which we work not in Argentina, because Argentina also have different conditions of practice, specifically Rosario. And I want to, I was asking for the translation of this, we didn't get it, so I'm gonna say it in Spanish. These are called ejes de replanteo. So this will be the axis you will do on the ground the day you start a work, because you will need to measure everything from here to actually start work. I don't know how, that, thank you. And I just want to show you where that point is. So that point is more or less here, there. Well, you know that we're here, this is Argentina, and this is the confluence of two rivers, Rio Uruguay and Rio Paraná. The Paraná actually comes very far away from here. And when they get together, it's called Rio de la Plata. And Buenos Aires will be here, and Rosario is a little bit farther north, following the Paraná River. And we're here in the Paraná River, and Buenos Aires will be here. This is a little town called San Nicolás, and this is Rosario. So Rosario is and the Paraná River is a biotome in the sense that it divides two different ecologies, the Pampas, the plain of the Pampas, heavily cultured and cultivated and industrialized, and the delta. Basically what you're seeing here is not a river, but a very huge delta that is called the Delta del Alto Paraná. So basically, Rosario, my city, is a small city of 1 million people, and is the residue of the colonial rules of urbanization called Indian codes, and it's basically a grid in between two landscapes, the plains of the Pampas and the delta of the river. And basically, it is the river for us. It's always has been just the economic driver of the region, because all the agricultural and industrial production go through a series of ports that now run more than 50 kilometers along the coast, because this ship is going directly to China. We are an international port. And so in between these two landscapes, the horizon of the Pampas and the horizon of the river, we have this very dense urban fabric. And I'm just going to run through very rapidly urban history. We used to be just the confluation of trades routes, and basically the legal trade will be here, like the King of Spain wanted to have his real trade, commerce happening here, but illegal commerce started to happen there, and suddenly we were born as a city, very recent and very small city that actually came through illegal international commerce. And at the beginning, the city has these two landscapes, very river and the Pampas. The city was very small, and I would say soft, and that's the infrastructure, like a bank of planks to actually get through the mud to get your illegal commerce going on. But then when we were thinking about how to organize our country, they have this strategic decision, because the agricultural production of the colonies were here by Jesuits agricultural productions. This is closer to the Andes. And this was a desert, and actually not even Buenos Aires was in the map, because the capital of all these places were here in Lima, Peru. And when we started our independence, basically the warlords of that time decided that we needed to take this production out, and they decided that the Paraná River will be the central spine of Argentina, and they traced this line in a map, and these are already England engineers that put together the first railroad track of Argentina that actually was this huge land enterprise. This is the train track, and this is just the operation of land development. And Rosario was also still this very small thing, and this is what actually started the production in the Pampas that before we didn't know that were actually what we realized were the most sustainable agricultural lands of the whole world. And slowly infrastructure started to solidify that port, and that's the story of our city. And of course the urban block is the driving force of this. This is also a real estate speculation. Chicago and Rosario were the fastest growing cities at this moment in time. It was also a frontier town, as you see. And then slowly economic bourgeoisie started to establish, and we got interesting architecture too, very nice streets, because this very old urban block of 100 by 100 give you this solid urban fabric, and pretty decent examples of modern architecture. And suddenly, after 60 years of rapid urbanization, we got this center. And 50 years later, we got this metropolis of the Pampas, and this is actually the real urban landscape of our cities, very dense urban fabric, and this is basically the metropolis now. So that was 200 years of urbanization in 5 minutes. So I'm just gonna frame my lecture in these 3 conditions of practice. And I'm going to start with the discovery of the river as a landscape, because we were a city that actually grew giving the back to this landscape, because this was all port. We very recently discovered this amazing landscape. I would say only 20 years ago probably, and architecture also discovered this very recently. This is a work by Rafael Iglesias of 20 years actually 15 years ago, that is influential for us, because it's the first architectural work that put us in contact with that horizon. Just a very small house clinging into the soft land that we have, because actually we don't have rock, we are just dust. And this against the current is very unstable, so the house was also unstable, but also the idea of establishing that point in the landscape and the association with this excellent photographer called Gustavo Fritegotto, that will be another of the cultural parameters. And this was the first time that an architectural work engaged with topography, because we're a flat land, and suddenly to start seeing those drawings at the edge of the cliff, basically, it was extremely new for us. And this is the same year, or actually previous work by Gerardo Caballero, that he did this work coming from WashU. He did his master at Washington University in St. Louis, and he came with this land art sensibility of topography, and that was like a shock for us. So I'm going to show you the first of my works. I was still at school when there was this opportunity for a competition to reframe what it used to be industrial port facilities into a new park, for the city to stop giving the back to the river and start actually using that landscape. And we propose some kind of surreal scenario of a forest that will frame our relationship with the horizon. And the 5 restaurants they asked for us, we put it underground. And this was let's say the frontal image of what we were thinking, and we were thinking to create a sense of suspense with slight topographic manipulations to separate yourself from the landscape, so when you are already in the coast, you think you are in a different condition, and you put your body in a clear relationship with the horizon. And this was some silos we wanted to maintain. The city turned them down. We went into the papers and trying to stop them, but it didn't work its way through. This is a very long drawing that I did, and still by hand, and this was actually longer than the table. And this is intense work that you do when you do a competition, that you just think 2 months working on that. We happened to win that competition, and then we worked for 1 year developing the construction documents. It was actually all going to be these these are documents for legal bids, and we were actually thinking this was going to happen, and so that's why the infrastructure is so simple, just some reinforced concrete structures, and basically this is the public ground. Some ideas of how to have this idea of people sitting here and never abstracting the horizon with the public furniture. So that's why also this is all terrace. So you're always having this direct relationship with the horizon. We work pretty hard on this. Every one of these sections I show you is one of these. So everything was calibrated. We were really hoping that this was going to happen. It didn't. And this is probably the main reason of my frustration with Argentina and my 10 years in this country after that. While I was I was coming back and forth for 5 years, and every time I had the chance to work, I will work. This is something we did together with Gerardo Caballero and Diego Arraigada, and we got the chance to do this very small intervention in another moment of the coast, and it just when this big avenue turns into a park, and suddenly this could be the beginning of a public green infrastructure. So this is basically the site, that's the curve, and we were thinking, we needed to think of an aquarium, and this was a direct request by the Minister of Science. So we actually were thinking that it was going to happen again, and we really thought that, well, we thought that engaging with topography and existing forestry, and then we thought that the building could be the frame of the public infrastructure that relates to the park that is here, and could actually work as a frame to see the horizon, and also engage with the geology of the delta. Because if this was going to be an aquarium, it was not going to be only about water, but about this interim landscape that we have there, these wetlands. And basically that's a little building, a ship a little fish out of the river. Very simple stuff. We were thinking this was going to be still like a warehouse. And these are drawings by Gerardo, by the way, very nice. Gerardo will do these kind of drawings, and then we will do this kind of representations of that. And basically this will be this idea of this frame into the horizon of the river. Gerardo will do these cheeky little thingies, and then we will do this, and this will be this park. These are beautiful drawings by Gerardo, actually. And then later on, moving on a bigger scale, we have now this bridge that is the only bridge that crosses that huge landscape of wetlands. It's 50 kilometers of bridges, actually, to get to another town, and this is the entrance to the Pampas. And this is the edge of Rosario, it's actually the corner of the city, and this is another city, so there was this international competition for the creation of a park here. after the bridge was done, which I think is stupid because they already spent all the money here, they will never do this park, but we did this competition anyway. So the first project I showed you was here, second project I showed you was here, and now I'm going to show you a project here, really the corner of a metropolitan condition and a fantastic point of view. Like that's the condition. You're seeing all the coast of the river of the central town of Rosario. And this is something interesting that happens when you look at the river from that high. The horizon gets inverted. Suddenly you're looking down, and the river is actually brown, but because you have all these sediments. But because of the sky, it changes colors every time you see it, and sometimes it's silver, sometimes it's blue. It's fantastic. But then it becomes like a sky, and it's totally the contrary what happens in the Pampas, that the actual landscape is the sky. So we were thinking about all this when we were doing this entry to the Pampas. We were thinking that the park should be the entries to the Pampas. And there is something funny that happens when you travel in the Pampas. Imagine that you are at the circumference of an infinite circle, and there is a point in the middle that doesn't move. And then these things move slowly, and this goes a little bit faster, and this goes a little bit faster. That's the image that I have when I travel to the Pampas, and suddenly you see these lines that were created to stop the wind, to protect the plants, the plantations, and suddenly a road crossed that tree, and there are probably 5 trees taken down, and suddenly you got these doors, these frames in the middle of the countryside, and there is a level of expectation. You think that something is going to happen there. Nothing happens, but in a way you feel that there is a threshold in the middle of the landscape. And then you got these lines. The previous one will be like orthogonal to you, and this one will be parallel to you, and they will travel with you for a while, and then they will go behind your back. So we were thinking of working with these two conditions of the landscape, and this will be our entrance to Rosario, and we will use eucalyptus forest to define the edges of these two towns. So this will be the edge of Rosario, and this will be the edge of that other town, and that's the bridge. And with very minor topographic manipulations, we will protect some of the original landscape. So we will have here a recreation of the industrial agricultural lands of the Pampas, and here we will have something more close to the river. And then the project will just be a road that will try to solve all the problems of parking for this linear infrastructure of public spaces they wanted. So basically this is the existing conditions. We're actually walking on top of the river in the lower level. This will be the forest reserve, and this is the agricultural lands, because we're trying to plan research facility connected to university there. And this will be the two forests, and suddenly the project will be that. We were very excited with this, really happy with the resolution of the vial infrastructure, trying to also be very careful with an existing neighborhood of fishermen, and trying to get them there, stay there. Basically the project is just that. It's a diagram that will change, and this diagram will frame different landscapes and urban conditions. And we were reusing the hole that was dug in order to build the park as this big amphitheater here. This was actually the construction site for the bridge. We were reusing that for this big infrastructure. And then at the end, in the highest point of the whole regional coast, this will be the amphitheater, and this will be the highest point that we call metropolitan viewing point. But you never get this chance to get these very big things, and sometimes your landscape is just a tree. It's a beautiful tree on the central coast of Rosario. This site is here, and we were asked in these competitions for young architects to build a museum of science under that. There is an existing retaining wall that will actually bring in all railroad infrastructure, so there is a tunnel. And it was not in the brief, but I proposed to use the tunnel to get into this plaza for another thing that we proposed in that competition that we won, that was to create an art museum in these silos that they didn't turn down because this is architectural patrimony. So I started to think about all these trees, and also the site included the possibility of the extension of this avenue. So basically, I started thinking about retaining walls as the conditions of my architecture, some reference, I was thinking that if this was a museum of science, probably something about the lighting conditions, and it's just a way of bringing you down through the museum to the tunnel, or just through the sidewalks and creating this plaza in this entry moment. And the silo should be here. I don't know why I don't have it. Actually here, yeah? So the silo will be that vertical sign that the coast is there, so you will be guided by this horizontal concrete beam to get you through the tunnel to the coast. So this will be the urban path you will take to get to the lower level of the topography. It's very early work. And then this is the funniest, very funniest block in our city. Our blocks are going to show you later are squares. This is triangular. Our blocks are flat, and this has topography. And it was a very funny competition. They gave me this site, and it was for the Architectural Association, and I always thought that this was actually a crossing path, and I needed to think that this big building over here was not there. So at the end, my building will be the edge of this topographic condition in the park, and it will be framed by these beautiful trees. And in this case, these are not silos, but are the back of a very nice building. I didn't know by then when I made this drawing, but the designer of this building was part of the jury, and he gave me the first prize, and I said, "Architect, you know why you gave me the prize? Because there is your building." That was a joke, actually. So I was thinking that this was going to be this concrete thing that will actually come out of the topography, and you will be here at the higher level in the city, and then you will come across courtyards, and then this what I thought was a scenographic staircase, and then you will connect with the public level of the topography down there. That was the only model I did. This is the main monument that we have, the monument to the flag. So it's a double monument. It's double fascist. It's like a monument to a nationalistic thing. It's amazing how fascist this thing is, but actually it's a pretty nice building. And I was thinking that I will see it, and basically I will make a nod to that, and I will do it horizontally because this was vertical. And basically I will just try to clean a public ground with no structure, using, as you see, these two walls that I had there on the side. You will get to a courtyard, and then you will get to this staircase. I call this machine to view trees, because these are the beautiful trees. So that's the level, and that's the staircase. And suddenly that was the presence of that building over there. And I still don't know how to do 3Ds. So I just thought that just cropping the photograph that will show how my building will frame the monument will be enough to show what is the character of the project in the public space. And then I did this big model in order to actually express or show what will be the conditions of those supposedly interesting staircase and halls to the entrance to the auditorium. And finally, regarding landscape, we got the opportunity with Villafaña, this is probably the last work we did together, to create this institution that it will be like a decentralized municipal agency in one block, complete block, free for ourselves, that used to be a nursery tree. So there are many trees around, and we'll try to think of a soft building, a soft, let's say, cloister building that will find its way through trees. And we actually, we were just 2 or 3 guys doing this, and we passed to second ground or second level, so we got a little bit more month to develop. So this is, so this is what we presented for the first phase, and this is what we did for the second phase, and this will be the biggest tree, and I was really, really excited about this. I was thinking a lot of Álvaro Siza and his Portugal pavilion, so this will be a very thin slab, and it will be the public space that will get you through the entrance to this courtyard that we will imagining will be extremely interesting spatially. This is supposedly the biggest tree on the site. I still love this project very much. And this is the only work I have done, built, regarding all this. So That's it. You can visit it. It's still there. It's very heavy. They will not be able to turn it down. I was so surprised because they actually remodeled the whole park. The whole park, they did it again. And I ran here. This is my running path. And they were starting working, developing the whole corner. I was like, okay, my only public work done. But it is so strange. They didn't know what to do with it. So they just left it there. So I won. And this is just concrete, and it's just very simple stuff. I was working in a municipal office for only 2 weeks. They kicked me out. But in these 2 weeks, they were planning a staircase there. And I'm like, dude, the actual sidewalk does that. I'm like, let me do a staircase. You want to do a staircase? Yeah, of course. Okay, do a staircase. And I did the thing, I did the model, and I left. 5 years later, they are actually building the staircase. I couldn't believe it. Very early work. So conditions of practice, right? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. And I would say that this is our urban machine. We have this since colonial times. We just subdivided more and more and more and more until we get to this. And this was the only landscape we knew for practice. And we took it for granted and never actually asked it conceptually until this came, and I call it the stone. And it's a work by Rafael Iglesias that is just a renovation of a modern house that is on top. And he created this thing that he called it a stone between modernism and its fundaments. And I thought that was like fantastic. And then this work, and this house is the reason that I am an architect. It was built at the time I was thinking about going to school, and this was on the path to my grandmother's house. And when I saw this, I just couldn't understand what was that. And then this is a renovation also. It's a renovation of a typical of a urban typology that we have that is called casa de pasillo or courtyard house. And I didn't understand this at all. And I was fascinated by that. And then later on, my chance was that I worked for 10 years with that guy, and then I knew what was happening inside. And what's happening inside is conceptually, we got these party walls that are just the result of extruding the lot to the sky. And this guy is doing these party walls for fun, just for fun, to call the other ones. And I think that, okay, that's to work with the urban context. That's understanding a condition of practice. And this is a house I did, or a project for a house I did just leaving school, a house in a corner. So then, this is the condition, this is the site that you have. You got party walls and internal walls, and you have to work with it, and you can do courtyards. In this case, the courtyard will be not at the back of the lot, it will be at the corner. And I'm just working with very slight deformations to get a sense of spatial continuity inside and outside, and especially the opportunity to work on the staircase with skylights to actually light that space up with a crack on the house so you get light there, and just like trying to bring all the 4 doors together so you got what used to be a dark space will actually be the more activated space of the house, and just trying to complicate your life as little as possible constructively because you're out of school, you just don't know how to build. And then to actually allow the party wall of the other house, that's the other house, to actually accept it and actually make it work for you in the work of the outside space. And this is the first work I did with Vitrefagni. It's an interior renovation. They gave us this space empty. We hang these 2 I-beams, and from those 2 I-beams we did this slab. And from that we hang this bridge of plywood, reused plywood that we just sanded and painted, and it was great. And we got also the space for a spiral staircase that we should design, but the client actually hated spiral staircase, and we were like coming up with this instrument to get the guy up and down. So suddenly the whole thing was working with this system, and this is the sliding partition that divides his bedroom, and this is the fixed partition that divides the bathroom, and we were really happy with that. And then I was just having fun doing furniture with that. This will be the breakfast table, and it will move. And we were so happy with the system that we for the next project that we had, we actually extended into a whole renovation of a house. We actually turned out things that were here and moved the kitchen here and basically opened up the whole space in diagonal views to the beautiful trees that he had. This is our national tree called Ceibo, and this is the Palo Borracho. Two beautiful trees. He got on his backyard and he never saw it, and suddenly we are trying to now make him see everything from it. These were the time we actually spent millions of years cutting things and gluing them together. And these are the first photograph that Fritegoto did for us. These are really bad photographs. I will have moved the camera someplace else to show the actual connection with that Ceibo. That is the whole reason for that courtyard, but we were young then. So this thing will actually help you get through, and when you are on the back, you will have this beautiful yellow light, a little bit like fall light that you have now because of the yellow leaves of your trees. And then this thing will actually, you see the connection of one courtyard with the other there. And this is the entrance of the house, from the house. And yes, we were doing everything by hand, and these were construction documents, and this leaked for years. So don't do it. It's bad for you and for the client as well. But the lighting conditions of those things were actually really interesting. And then we did a couple more of houses working with that system, because with steel beams you can actually make it pretty flexible. This is this is an urban house with a weird condition. I don't know if I have time to explain this, but there are two kind of lots, or I should have explained you that before, but the colonial times, Spanish Empire had these rural divisions called lonjas, and they were like orthogonal to the rivers, very long lines. So the city is skewed a little bit from those original lines. So whenever you see a diagonal in the city, it will be those, and probably you don't recognize that, but the street is actually running this way. So basically this is diagonal. It's weird to explain that. So then this is a very deep lot, and the client wanted a chalet that is like a brick house and then a pitch roof. So then we say, okay, brick is too expensive, so we're gonna plaster. Okay, plaster. And here is your pitch roof. Okay, so we totally lied to the guy. And then, okay, we have these very tiny courtyards that are not following code, and we use this as the coding mechanism. So these are, because this is north, this is the best orientation, and this every room has its own little patio. And then we're actually working with the two differences, let's say the diagonal of the city in relationship with our lot, because we're orthogonal to that party wall. And suddenly there is a point in space that will change every time that you walk past it, and it's a comment on the difference of these two urban rules. And this will be just, we didn't hire photograph back then, these are just our photographs, so they're a little bit rough. But what I like the most about the house, that I think that this is the neighbor, and this is us. So I think that the house understood a clear relationship, like a good neighbor relationship, because you will say hi to the guy when he wakes up in the morning. This is a very recent, well, not so recent. I only got the chance to do an urban house only one time with my sister. This is already the firm that we have with my sister. She is the boss. I don't want to claim any kind of, she is the boss. And so this is a very simple lot, and I was thinking, and she's an engineer, and she will actually work there. So I'm like, okay, so that's the lot for the house, and that's the lot for the office. So I got a lot within a lot, and I thought that was great. But the thing is that there was an existing house there, and she is engineer, she calculates the structure, and his husband is an engineer, and he's a constructor, and they were like, let's just do a renovation of what's there. I was like, oh. And there was this party wall in the middle, and it was so insanely difficult to place this staircase here, because this is the structural line of the old house. So we were really trying to get our heads around it, and basically this will be the new reinforced concrete beams, because I was also trying to light up this space. And I was thinking that this column will actually create me the space to connect the kitchen, the staircase, and then this will be shorter, so light will get through. But we didn't get to do it at the end. But we actually defended that window there, and that as a glass door. So because I was thinking that this was going to be very dark. So this photograph of Walter Salcedo is actually pretty helpful because it's not dark. And basically what we did is that we put this insanely huge window on that staircase, and that will be the mechanism to actually highlight this moment over here and that moment over there. So it's a pretty simple operation, because actually we were working with engineers that were building their own house. But we managed, here the kids are actually working here, because this is where they do homework and stuff. And I think it's a pretty decent space. And this is the connection of the courtyard, and this is where you have to actually be friend with the party walls of the others, because that's your urban condition. And funny thing is that institutions, we do it the same. We actually put it inside party walls, because we don't have any other place there. And this is a big institution. It's actually a union, a worker union, so it's a very Detroiter thing. And it's a health insurance and all that, but it's actually luz y fuerza. That's called light and force. They are the electric workers union. And it is this fantastic, this is by Augusto Pantarotto, a little bit older than us, but also a big figure for us. And this is just this heavy institutional building that behaves so nicely in the city, and then you will enter through these small spaces, and then he will open up this interior space, almost like the interior space of the block, and then you get this lighting from north and south. It will be fantastic. So when we get with Villafañe, when we got to do this competition of again another institution, we were thinking on that. Actually, I didn't realize we were thinking on that. I just realized that when I was putting these images together. We were just having fun saying that this is the form of the lot. And we were saying, okay, what if we do a plan that is like the section? And we were like, yeah, that's cool, let's do that. So this is our section. It's a 10-story building, got some banks here, some cultural moments here, and then offices to rent up there. And then we did this balcony thing in which one big space will look into that other big space. So that will be the interior section. And that's the plan, in which there is a hole, a very kind of like volumetric hole in the sidewalk that is here, that will bring you down. You will be in a lower space, and then you will suddenly be in that upper space. And this is what I'm telling you, I actually realized when I was putting this lecture together. It's actually the same spatial conditions of this precedent that we have. We didn't think about it, but it is there. So our conditions of practice include this reverence to local precedents. So then that will be the sequence. This will be the entrance on the street, and then you are up here looking down, or you are like down looking up. And then also putting this lecture together, I realized that this is the last big project we did with Diego, and it's a library. And I sense that 10 years later, it's like you don't learn anything. You just repeat things that you did. It's crazy. So we were doing this competition. We didn't choose the site. We thought it was a very bad site, and we were supposed to do a bicentennial library to celebrate our 200 years as independent country. I think that we should cry, not celebrate, the way that we're going. But we were thinking, okay, let's just do a cube. Why? Because the most beautiful libraries that we know are cubes. And let's just try to do our own cube. And this is a Álvaro Sisa's building, very nice building. That's a courtyard he has on the main avenue here, but he has this entrance here. That's actually the front desk, and he has a back door here. So you can actually cross the building like that. So we're thinking we should establish this relationship. So that's why we moved the building a little bit up. And then we're thinking that we're gonna do a forest. We're gonna plant 200 trees, and then every year we will plant another more. And that will be the way to celebrate the bicentennial. And we were thinking, working on beams, a little bit like my previous museum and show you, but this time we will try to organize the central infrastructure, central vertical infrastructure, and these beams will actually crisscross and move like a clock every 3 hours, and this is the work you have to do when you do a competition. You just basically pretend that you care about program, but then you don't care. And you try to solve pretty much everything in plans and then work through sections, and it's like, yeah, I keep doing the same things again and again and again. Plans, and then you have to give the character to the building, so you actually begin to create this monster, soft monster, creating this plaza that of course is a backyard plaza, but we were trying to create this pedestrian, so basically to create a little bit like a forum of public buildings, and we were thinking that this monumental condition it was strong enough to celebrate 200 years and stay for 200 more, and that's the forest that will soften a little bit everything, and the plants, sections. I think it's quite funny. And this is the thing, right? It's just, I didn't even change the way of drawing it in 10 years. Totally insane. I realized that last week. Because you don't want to think that you don't learn. So this will be the sequence of public spaces going up. They will go up and circular around the building. This will be the main hall. Then you will be in the let's say, they ask, this is the entrance to the auditorium that is here, and this is the exhibition hall, and then you're looking to the hall, and that's the entrance to the actual library. So at the third level, you will be in the library, looking at the exhibition, looking at the hall, and looking at the street and CISA. And that's the other library. We divided two lecture rooms, one for fiction, another one for science. And in the reading rooms, we will have these very low windows looking again at the horizon of the city. Which brings me to the last condition that is also a very recent condition that actually relates to the suburbanization of our town. We used to be a very urban society. Now people want to live here. They want to escape this and live here. And developers are actually selling something that don't exist, because this freedom does not exist, because this is going to become this, but worse. And again, we were looking at certain works that open up the critical, let's say, the disciplinary questions to ask on those conditions, and this is an early work by Gerardo, working on rural prototypes, galpón. This will be like a warehouse, or this will be actually a galpón, a metallic warehouse. This is pretty recent work by Gerardo. I show this because I write about this. So all the works that I show, I have articles written about, so I think about the work, and I think that in a way it influenced my work too. This is like a big screen, and also a space that when you are inside, it puts you back in the horizon. So it's always framing the horizon. And this is the first house in that condition we did with Villafañe, and this is what I'm telling you that it's a lie. This is actually a block, an urban block. It's just that it's not developed. So I was able to take this picture 20 years ago, but now it's impossible because there are 20 houses in between where I am standing and that house. So it is an illusion. Developers sell an illusion. And this is a very basic house. We're trying to do just a very simple rancho, that is the popular typology of low well, and then the thing is that we devised this system in which the roof will have a steel structure, and then the house will be retaining walls, load-bearing walls. We were working with concrete blocks here, that these are just concrete blocks painted. And they will work also in the outside too, because we have a climate that actually allows for that. So we'll just use one single block, and we'll fill it with some I don't remember what it was, but that will give you the enough thermal protection to work through. So sometimes this will go to a column, metallic column, and sometimes it will go to the load-bearing wall, but sometimes it will just do its own thing. And that allows us to actually frame, and also this is a very decent height. This is probably 5 meters, so it's really tall. It's a really fantastic I think that is really good space. And then you will have to frame and do what you have to do in the Pampas, that is to create a little bit of shade, because we're talking about 100 Fahrenheit in summer, so really, really hot and humid. And this was under construction. I got stories about this roof that flew away by a hurricane 1 week before the client was moving. This is true, but I have to talk about that for 1 hour, so I don't have time. It's very, very simple house. And I was also very happy to see that they actually relate with a house that we did with my sister years later. And this is actually an urban house, but it's at the edge of town. And it could have this relationship with the horizon for 10 years before they develop the city there, because there is this huge developer-driven urbanization that is going to come here. But at least the client could actually enjoy a little bit of that. And because it's almost a cul-de-sac, you will always get to the house from this direction. So we're thinking to make this little indentation of the house so it will change, a little bit like we did in the house inside the city. It will change the moment that you approach. And it will just have this funny roof there, and a big window towards the sky, towards the sunlight of the afternoon, and a door inside towards the sun of the morning. And these are photographs of, I think that I'm still a little bit amazed with only one geometric move. It's a very simple house with just like 2 parallel lines that will work against the orthogonal organization, and just 1 diagonal that is almost like an encounter diagonal, something that comes for free. And suddenly that creates these spatial variations that I think that are. So this is because this is public space and people will see it, so you put it high and you see the trees. And this is down because it's your space and you will see here the horizon. And these are photographs by a professional photographer, and these are my photographs of the actual space. The client was so happy. I was showing you this house in Detroit because I put this photograph in my Facebook 15 minutes ago, and she's like, I think I know that house, because the flyer is for that house. And that's my sister, my boss. And I really think that we should be seeing more of these photographs in architecture school to talk about domestic conditions and how people actually use the spaces that we create for them. And I'm really happy that she's happy in this house and still maintaining every day this relationship with the horizon. And I'm going to show you very fast, as a movie, the last work we did together with my sister to actually scare you to death about the conditions of practice in Argentina. I love these clients. They will actually be living us 100% all the time. We never change a drawing by something they told us. They actually accepted everything. I actually had to fight with my sister, actually, because I'm like, let's do that. And she's like, no. I'm like, the corridor, 1 meter. Bathroom, 1.5 meters. So she is definitely my boss. That's a party wall, and that's again the streets, or again the indentation. The client will always come from here because that's the entrance to this urbanization. And there's some regulations I'm going to talk about, but the idea will be to create this gallery that will be, basically he will have 2 houses. This will be the summer house, and this will be the winter house. And he will be, because this is the most important part of the house, that's the barbecue place. And this is for actually 4 cars. 1 car here, 1 car here, and over there. Because these 2 guys have cars and have kids that have cars, and we'll visit them during weekends. It's almost like a retirement home. They're actually going to live outside, trying to enjoy their final years of life there. And this is very small drawing I do on, look at this is 150 plan. So this is really a tiny, tiny drawing I do to make sense of what we're doing. I was thinking, because this is a party wall, but you will see it, I was thinking that this bifurcation will work perfectly. This comes from setback regulations. I was thinking to plant a tree here. But we couldn't do it because the regulation actually have a maximum height there. So we couldn't do that diagonal. I'm still crying about it, but I think that this could come into another work. You always want to carry something for another work. So this is actually the resolution, that's the final plan, and these are construction documents. With these kind of drawings, you go to the field and you build it. So I'm gonna show you very fast 1 year of my life. And again, this is the beginning of that house. See, this will be a greenfield development, but the thing is that we know that another house will come here very fast. So it's not that you're doing a house in the middle of nowhere. You're doing an urban house. That's why we actually trust in party walls in a way. So the first thing that you do is pretty much you make the drawing of the house down there, and then this is very fast. In 1 month you have pretty much the foundations, and this is supposed to be a photograph there. And basically that's what you do when you go to the, actually I take pictures, my sister negotiates, because this is a construction company owner, and this is the guy that is doing the work on the field. And we're trying to defend the interests of the client. You're actually in between the clients and the construction companies. This is we have this double wall. This is the inner wall with ceramic tiles. Then we got the protection in between and all the systems and thermal protection too. So you will see like the inside house, and then the outside house, that is the brick wall, comes slowly, and then you put the beams there that waits for the brick, and finally 4 months later you got the bones of the house. We build exactly the contrary than you. We started from the outside and then we go inside. And well, they're starting to put the roof, and the same people, this guy will do everything. I will come and he will be like there. He just built the whole house by himself. Some subcontractors, especially for thermal protections and ceiling. And when I got this space, I'll come down. I think, okay, we got the bones of the house, and the bones are right. These are like 4 meters, so this is actually pretty high space. And I'm seeing already, we're in the middle of winter, and houses under construction, they are actually pretty dark and humid. And suddenly this was not dark at all, and I was like, this is gonna work. And so that's the boss controlling how bad they will do this. They do it pretty badly, and I was not happy with that guy in December. We're doing now I'm really showing you 1 year in which you go twice a week to this. That is 1 hour drive to the outskirts, 1 hour back. So you actually spend a lot of energy in here, and if you don't go, they will put the window in the wrong place. So you have to be there. And when they put that, actually it was like that. They built the wall until here. I'm like, dude, there were 3 windows there. I'm like, oh, it's really crazy. No, it's not funny. It's really not funny. So I think that I think that the client is not mad at us because this is a nice house. It gives a sense of scale and dignity to that house. And this is the backyard. They're starting to do the big swimming pool. And this is the tradition that we have. Every Friday they eat there because they're all the time there. But once a week they do an asado. That's that barbecue. But once during construction, the owner will have to pay for the asado. And so that's my sister, that's the owner, that's the constructor, and we are eating the asado. And I think that was the last day we were all happy. And also the construction dog is always there. It's always a different dog. And so that will be the sidewalk. This is the setback. There will be a fence here that we thought it was going to be a green fence. The client at this time is broke, completely broke. He doesn't have any more money. So all landscape, and Peter Osle will actually understand this, all landscape that we thought it was actually really important for the house, it will never be done, actually. And this day, I just took a walk through the neighborhood to actually show you the conditions of where that house is being built. And this is coming all at the same time. All this was developed by a single developer with very basic infrastructure, and then urbanization is coming, and yeah, that's an actual airplane because that's the airport. And I don't think it's going to get better than this. It's going to be that. So it's going to be a very, very rough urban condition. So I think that the house to give a dignified entrance to the house will actually help the client, and then framing as much as you can the sky and not the neighbors. Because here there will be a very ugly house. So you will put your fence here that it will be this tall, so you will see just the sky. So you will frame. And also with the window, because you will have here here you will have your tree, right? And then you have your green fence, and then you will see the sky in a little bit like trying to get into that horizon thing. But look at this. This is actually pretty tall. That's a guy working over there. So that's the light for the winter morning. This is the winter morning. So I imagine that having breakfast here before going to work, it will be okay. That's the client. And suddenly magic happens. When you always think that painters will solve all the problems. They actually don't solve all the problems, but they help you a lot. So the house is white, and we changed it. We thought that black floor will be okay. So in here, like I imagine that the client is preparing coffee here and having his mate in the morning there. That's the sunlight of a winter morning. So I think the space actually works pretty well. There was another picture here. And suddenly, these are the last pictures that I have. I don't have like a real photographer photos. Also at dinner we can talk about it. There are some issues more important than architecture that I didn't feel I should go disturb this guy one day of his life to take photograph of his house. So that will be the entrance. We are already in summer, so this is December. And this is during almost, I would say, noon. So this shadow is very important. Like to have this is luxury. And also to have wind traversing this is also, actually, the husband of my wife, he's an engineer, he's telling us that this is gonna fly away, that wind is gonna come and gonna still there 2 years. So let's hope that nothing happens. But this is the summer house. I was showing you a photograph of the winter house. This is the summer house. And I think it's a pretty good space. You will have the barbecue there. You will eat there. And also this connection of the inside outside. Basically, this is the thinnest part of the house, because this is where the house actually turns. And you will have this connection with the landscape and your interior landscape. There was another photograph there. And there was another photograph there. And this is pretty much the summer house. And I think that this is the end of my lecture. Hopefully you find it interesting. Thank you very much. I will take questions if you have any.
Just repeat the question because we also
Okay.
would like to.
Okay. If you don't have questions, I'm okay too. So don't worry. I always do. I always do. No, let me answer that question. Yeah, Peter is asking me if I cry when I see good sections. And then I will say, I have this fight to explain students that sections are actually drawings, like 2D things that you can actually make decisions there. Like I show you this thing that I have this elevation and then I drew on top, and I didn't change the digital model because we didn't have digital models. So it's like when you cut a digital model, that's not a section. A section has to do this drawing where you actually, it's a place to make decisions, and it gives you so much power. And with sections, you actually determine space. Plans, you have to be like Álvaro Siza to determine space with plans. Sections, normal guys like us, can actually shape space. So yeah, I really love sections. Well, thank you very much. It was fun for me. Hopefully it was fun for you.
CJ. Why?